It's that time of the week. The music plays. It's time for Free Speech Fridays. And once a month, we kind of go back to the old boys, to Leo and Leo Molloy from HQ in Auckland on the Viaduct. And my mate Alistair Boyce from the Backbencher Gastro Pub, Molesworth Street, Wellington, right opposite Parliament. And so we've got the boys together again, and we've got tons to talk about. Leo, Boyce, welcome to you both. Thank you for joining me again. Are we both well?
I'm well, Sean.
Very well, Sean.
And look,
yeah,
what a relief, guys. We've got through the first 100 days. Isn't there a quiet sense of achievement all over the country today?
You go, Boyce.
Well, it's a huge... I reckon it's a great achievement, to be honest. They've smacked over the idiocy of the Labor government and allowed a new platform of growth for New Zealand to take off from, because Labor gave us nothing.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to say, and I'm sure Leo would agree, 100-day plan after 100-day plan is going to get old quick, in my opinion.
Well, my view is just a box-ticking exercise, that the barometer I use to measure how well they're doing is how badly Russell Brown, Simon Wilson and Willie Jackson are behaving. And they're all like little kids having a tantrum, so I'm delighted. I don't need to read the news. I just look at what those three are saying and doing, and it tells me exactly how well the government's doing, and it appears to be doing particularly well.
Yeah. I got to say, guys, the first that list of 49, a lot of it was stopping, rolling back or halting what I'm sure you guys would see, or many people would see, as the rot of the last government. But it's really tricky. As I said, I think the gravy train has stopped, but there are still people hiding in the first-class carriages, and they're not really keen to get off the train. And I would say primary amongst them is people like Professor Joanna Kidman, who is being paid by the government to counter extremist language online. And Boyce, she looks for all the world like she's one of the nastiest left-wing trolls out there.
I can't believe the taxpayer of New Zealand funds her job. And her role, calling the government a child-hating death cult, it's absolutely a lie. It's almost criminal in intent. She needs to be, in an extremist language, exterminated herself. So that's how I feel about it.
All right, Leo?
I'm no fan. I mean, she's a professor, but professors are like dogs on a flea's back. They're everywhere. If you go looking deep enough, in the bowels of any university, any tertiary institution, you'll find professors by the dozen with nothing to do.
Well, why didn't Luxon see this? I mean, she was covered. We covered her here and said what a bad appointment she was at the time. But Luxon almost seems to be saying, death cult, child-hating, does that mean you don't like us? Why doesn't he just fire her ass right now?
Well, he's busy on his 100-day plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rocking the boat is the job of Winston and Seymour, and they're doing an outstanding job, and they say so. I think Chris just plays with a very straight bat and he doesn't want any black marks with his name. Hence, he gave Jacinda an extension of her mad Christchurch call overseas jaunt. He's just doing the right thing and just trying not to offend anyone.
I'd rather he was more offensive, to be honest. He's a bit blancmange to me, you know.
Well, he's got plenty of heavy lifters there who can be offensive. Chris Bishop's one who springs to mind. He's a bit of a...
Yep, we had him on this morning. We had Judith on this morning, yeah.
Well, there's another one. There are a couple of beauties right there.
Yeah. Now, look, here's the issue that I think a lot of people who listen to the platform are interested. I know there's been huge interest online in it. And let's call it the granny bashing sentencing. And that was a discharge without conviction for this young man from Gisborne who punched at least 3 times a 71-year-old woman who was taking part in a peaceful event at a public place in Auckland. She was badly injured by it, but the judge says he qualifies for discharge without conviction and permanent name suppression. And control yourself, Leo. I know you've got a track record for breaking name suppressions, and I don't want it to happen here. I have actually argued that when you look at the legality of it, we had Graham Edgeler on yesterday. Actually, the judge applied the law fairly and without fear or favour, didn't he, Leo?
No, that is quite incorrect, but let me take you back to square one. This is an example here of a young fellow, and he's an athletic sort of a type. I've seen him in the flesh. He hit her on 3 consecutive occasions. He broke her eye socket. This was never common assault. Common assault is what I'm currently charged with, putting a hand on a policeman's back. That's common assault. Falling backwards onto someone is common assault. Had he dropped his shoulder on her in a crowd and pushed her out of the way, that's common assault technically. He was guilty of male on female. He never should have been charged with anything less.
Well, that's not the judge's fault. The judge can only play with the cards dealt to him by the prosecution.
If you let me have a turn at talking, I'll finish this little spiel. I'm going to have a little rant here. The police crew that day was woefully inadequate. The police are intertwined inextricably throughout this whole drama. And remember up in Gisborne, they gave him diversion and they had to backtrack on that. That's when he was first charged, in case you forgot. I've done exactly the same thing here. And there's allegedly a trans policewoman by the name of Rona Stace on the fringe of this. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I've been told it is. And they only had 6 police staff at Albert Park. Albert Park was always a festering shore after MSM elevated or platformed that guy, Chanel Lau. He was hysterical and extreme in what he was asking for, aided and abetted by the Green Party. They went looking for blood that day, as was evidenced by what happened, what evolved, and he should be made accountable for that. You know, whether he's ADHD or not, I have no idea. That's only a distraction. What he should be charged with and dealt with and penalised for is assault male on female.
Well, it's all over now, Leo. We don't have double jeopardy in this country.
Well, it may not be all over, because I do understand the Free Speech Union, amongst others, is going to appeal that permanent name suppression. So there might be a little bit of juice left in this orange.
Okay, but I'd add too that his victim has said, no, leave him alone, that's enough.
Oh, true, that must be a subsequent development. I was unaware of that.
Yeah, no, that happened yesterday. She just said, I think his naming and outing now is enough, which I thought was an incredibly magnanimous thing of her to do. Boyce, your feelings on this? Leo, obviously, has a little bee in his bonetto over it. What about you?
Yeah, Leo's covered off that. I mean, he's got to be held accountable, and if the victim, I mean, lovely of her to do that. She's probably just had enough, maybe battered into acquiescence. But the greater culpability is still Hipkins, Davidson, your mate Golras, Marama Davidson, the media, and the massive eat up, and then the bureaucracy of the police and customs that victimised Posey Parker and sent her packing from this country, which is just an ongoing embarrassment for everyone involved in that situation. And that's the greater culpability, and that is what needs to be continually exposed.
Well, you find out. We talked to Posey, was it yesterday morning on the platform here? And as I've said, I can't get, guys, I can't get personally angry about this soy boy from Gisborne, because at the end of the day, he was just, and they were at the sharp end of a whole lot of other dumb stuff that had gone on in our society in the lead up to that. I actually think News Hub in some ways are as much culpable as that guy for what, or Chanel Lawless for what happened that day. But to be honest, fellows, let's look at it. News Hub, karma's a BH, isn't it? And
I love Seymour's headline this morning. They're absorbed by self-pity, and I do agree with that. TVNZ and News Hub need to sit back and take a long look at themselves and their performance, their behaviour, their lack of ability to attract customers, the fact that society's moved on with digital options, handheld options now to get our news from, rather than that type of media. And they just don't seem to have moved forward, and now they expect the world to come and save their sorry asses.
Well, the great switch in the narrative, it's all Winston Peters' fault for saying they were a-holes.
And he's the one they wouldn't cover during the election campaign of all the parties. He was particular, but Seymour got modest coverage too. And even now they're sniping at the coalition government all the time. They can't see the error of their own mistakes, their own ways.
Yeah. Boyce, are you worried about democracy now that News Hub's folding and some people are going to lose their jobs at TVNZ?
I'm not. I don't. They weren't acting as a democratic player. They are now just sort of that en masse, the spoilt children in the room that haven't got their ice cream and their lollies. They haven't got their sugar fix because they were so important. Now they got to go, and they got to go. Their business models. I mean, we've discussed this a lot over the last 2 years. Their business models no longer stack up. They're not in touch with their audience. They're not in touch with their own businesses. They're not seeing what the markets are doing. And apart from that, they're incredibly biased. Never seen anything like it, and their reaction to the shakedown is typical of where they're at. They need to.
I must admit,
go
guys,
back to the
I
shadows.
thought, going back down to Parliament watching, I thought at some stage the collective legacy media are going to accept the fact that there was a democratic election and the people who'd been paying them all this money to keep their businesses afloat. I just thought they'd get real, but they haven't. It is now almost open warfare in the theatrette on a Monday afternoon when they have the press conference.
Yes, I watched it.
Hey, there's a couple of things. Can we circle back on one thing for a start? Graham Linehan, he's due to appear here. I was speaking to with the FSU next week. Now, you talk about Posey Parker, made me think of him. Do you know that he's been cancelled from at least one venue here in town that I know of? And the reason I know that, yes, true story. So that Paul Thistle and his crowd, who are very militant from the LGBTAIQ crowd. Yes, his name Paul Thistle.
He had a crack at me yesterday. He tried to get our domain name taken down.
Yeah, he's an extremist. But anyway, he's orchestrated this, and they've had a crack at Good George Pub, who had pre-sold 125 tickets at a very modest sum. Wasn't a lot of money involved. They come to me, the free speech union, and said, can you do it? But problem, our turnover is about 5 times what they anticipate, so I couldn't do it. But I would have liked to have done it just for the publicity, the attention from the likes of Paul Thistle, but however, that didn't happen. But he's been cancelled, and that's disappointing. People who watch TV shows will know Father Ted. He's a very well-known Irish writer, very talented writer, multiple shows he's written for, and it's a shame that he's been cancelled. So that's another symptom, another example of the oppression of free speech by this crowd.
And you wouldn't, I would have expected to have that story reported by the mainstream media, but nothing.